Hey everybody, it's Amanda, and it's Thursday, and normally this would be time for my grocery haul, but this week we don't have a grocery haul. We are saving money by not grocery shopping, and I have been doing these grocery hauls for years on my YouTube channel, and I thought I can't just leave every Thursday we have one posted, and I figured I can't just leave you with no grocery haul. So I was racking my brain today. I was like, what can I do that's going to help people and encourage people to save money on their groceries? Hello, everybody popping in. And what can I do to make sure that I can say something encouraging to you guys about your groceries? And I thought I can just share some tips on saving money on your groceries. And I was trying to rack my brain about what kind of tips I could give you, and it struck me that a lot of you may not have actually looked at my blog series called How I Feed My Family of Five for $100 Every Month. So let me know if you guys have read it. You can let me know in the chat. But it's something that I've had around for quite a while, several years. But even though it's been around for several years, maybe you haven't looked at it. Maybe you don't know what's in it. But it's actually on my blog. It's called thefundamentalhome.com. You've read it. Yay. There's some tips on there. And frankly, I wrote it. And I know what I do. I was on Luke's website trying to win Luke's gift cards, but I had to come see you guys at 5, so there it is. Anyway, you haven't read it, Melissa? You stalk me every day. No, I'm just kidding. So that is a private joke, people. That is a private joke. So anyway, so I have a website. It's thefundamentalhome.com, and there's a series called How I Feed My Family of Five for $100 Every Month. I actually have a playlist here on YouTube with the same name. And you might be thinking, Amanda, you're not feeding a family of 5 for $100 every month. You're feeding a family of 6 for $65 a week. Well, when I wrote the blog post several years ago, that was our actual budget. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to pull this up here. And I was reading back over it because I even though I live this life, even though this is how, and I still budget my groceries in the same way. These tips are still valid, even though my budget has changed. I haven't read it in a while, so I read back over it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a great tip. So I thought, you know what, even if you have read it, maybe if you haven't read it in a while, maybe if I share some of the tips with you and tell you a few stories, maybe it'll help you and encourage you and give you some thoughts and ideas maybe you hadn't thought of for feeding your family on a budget. And of course, if you guys have any specific questions, you can also put those in the chat, and I will try to make sure that I go over those with you. So anyway, the series, How I Feed My Family of Five for $100 Every Month, I did that, and I divided it into 5 parts. There's actually 5 different blog posts. Yeah, I totally get that. There's actually 5 different blog posts, and each of them kind of has a different theme, just to share with you some different things that are on it. So the first one is about discipline and organization. So we'll talk about that first. And with discipline and organization, I think that's something that you have to have before you even worry about the little details of menu planning and checking your inventory and all of those things. Because if you are not disciplined and if you are not organized, then it's not going to matter how great your plan is, because you won't keep it. So a couple of suggestions that I made right off the bat. First one is keep your grocery budget in cash. Okay, I don't know if you guys do this, if this has been something that you do, you don't do. How many of you guys use the envelope system, the Dave Ramsey envelope system? That's actually kind of, we didn't use Dave Ramsey per se. We used Crown Financial Ministries because this was years ago. It was pre-Dave Ramsey when Rick and I first got married. But an envelope system is a pretty standard financial practice, and that's how we started. We started with an envelope, cash, with a specific amount for our grocery budget. And what we would do was, and I know this is going to sound crazy, maybe just a little bit, or maybe you're in this position and you totally understand, but we had an amount at the time, which was, we used to spend $50 every 2 weeks for 5 people, and that was all we had. But what we would do is Rick and I would save our change, and if we had random dollar bills, and so we would always take that $50, and then before I left to go grocery shopping, we would dig and see what kind of change we had. He has a little like cup on top of his dresser, and I have a change thing in my purse. And so we would go through and look at the different things and try to figure out if we had any extra. So if I had like $1.12 extra, I was like, "Woo! I am rolling in the dough this week." But it would just, it would just give you a little extra money just to make the most of what you had, right? I'm looking at your comments. I couldn't figure out why I spent so much more on groceries, but I finally realized it's including household, personal, and pet items. Yes, personal items are separate. I'm talking just food. This is just groceries. Platypus says, I'm organized, but I lack discipline. I'm great at meal planning, but bad at ordering pizza when I don't feel like cooking. I do think that's what a lot of people struggle with. I really do. It's one or the other. It really is. Some people have a lot of discipline, but they're not organized. And some people are very organized, but not disciplined. But you got to have both if you're going to have your budget down to a minimum. If you're going to get it as low as humanly possible. So, and I think, honestly, I do think it's a little bit easier when your budget has to be that tight to be disciplined, because you really have no choice. Do you know what I'm saying? So anyway, keeping your budget in cash helps you to stay on that budget, because once it's spent, and nobody wants to go to the register and not have cash to pay for something. I'll tell a little story on Ricky. Ricky went to pay for something last week, and he was like 5 cents short, right? This is my son who I raised, who should know better. He went to pay for something, and he was like 5 cents short, and he was like, well, I'm just 5 cents short, and he actually expected the person to give it to him. I was like, are you nuts? He's like, well, it's like 5 cents. Like, everybody's got 5 cents. I said, but you didn't have 5 cents. I wouldn't have given it to you either. So, mental note, he learned a lesson about being embarrassed and having to put stuff back. So, so there it is. Just make sure you have it in cash. Pay attention. Most everybody has a cell phone. Use your calculator if you have to. Make sure you're calculating for the tax. But use cash, and it'll keep you from overspending, because if you have to stay on that budget, you have to stay on that budget. I don't want to tell on anyone in particular, but I know someone who also, they have a budget. Their husband keeps track of the money, and they give him a budget, and this person from time to time goes over their budget and then has to explain it to her husband. And so I think that it would probably be easier if you just bought it in cash, and then there's no stress. So, just a little side note, just trying to be helpful to you. I'm looking at your comments. Ooh, yeah, my husband, she says, oh, using cash is life-changing. Once it's gone, it's gone. Petrol's gas for the U.S. And groceries purchased with cash. How do you decide how much to spend on the other non-food items? We have a budget for that too. We have, it used to be envelopes, but now we just use our bank account. But we have a specific budget, and that's it. We have one for personal items, and we have one for non-food items. And I actually have some videos on that too if you're interested. Melissa says, my husband works less hours in the winter, so we need to tighten the belt a little. It's funny how you can live on less when you have to. Isn't it funny how that works? Anyway, so, all right, I'm going to go to the next one, and it says, plan your trips to get food. Okay, I do not coupon, but I do think that's helpful to some people. Plan your trips to get food. Do not just randomly go to the store any old day. Okay, we go every week Thursday. Now, if something comes up, we're traveling, we're on vacation, we'll go Tuesday or Wednesday, but as a general rule, we go on Thursday. And when you are consistent about it, when you do it every week on the same day, and you know you're going, first of all, it helps you to plan better. It helps you to plan your meals. It helps you to plan your schedule in terms of going different places, but also helps you to plan the gas that you're spending, which if you're going to keep making all these trips, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? And then you're going to overspend if you're going back and forth to the grocery store. If you know you're going to go back another time, you're like, I'll just pick that up another time. Don't do it. Plan your trips. You can go once a week. You can go twice a week, or twice every 2 weeks. You can go once a month. But plan your grocery trips. Don't just randomly go any old time during the week, because that is when you are going to overspend. So, hey, I'm doing really well. Um, Melissa says we by far spend more money on the I Want Twizzlers trips than actual grocery shopping. Exactly. That's how you're gonna blow your budget. Don't do it. Don't do it. Um, oh my word, $3,500 a month. Whew, okay. So how do I break it down into a weekly trip without going over? I don't seem to be able to do that. Break what down? Break our budget down? Well, for us, Rick gets paid every 2 weeks. And so what we do is when he gets paid, I'll put a certain amount aside and take half of it and go shopping and take the other half and put it aside for the following week. And that's normally how we do it. Now, I'm not physically putting it aside into envelopes anymore. I used to do that. I've been doing this for 20 years. I used to do that at the beginning because I needed to have it in cash, in my pocket, in an envelope to keep track of it. But now I've been doing it so long, I kind of know where it's going and where it's coming from. So I just know I'm not touching that money because I need it for groceries. But that's how we do it every other week. Let's see. Any advice for college students when it comes to budgeting? It's the same as if you're a college student. It's the same as if you're not. It's all kind of the same. You just have to. College student. I have one tip for a college student, but it's going to come up. So just 1 second. Sam says to cut down on wanting to run out and grab sweets, I make a batch of cookie dough, put it in little balls, and freeze it. And then when I crave something sweet, I grab a cookie and I don't spend. Ooh, you guys, the whole thing about extra trips to the food is, and I don't want to, we're not going to get through this whole thing. I can see that we might have to make this a series, guys. The whole thing about planning extra trips to get food, or not planning, just planning your regular trips to get food, is there are going to be times when you want something and you don't get it. That's the honest truth. Today, for instance, I wanted something sweet. I didn't have any cookies made. I didn't have anything quick I could grab and throw in my mouth. If you've watched our grocery hauls, you know I almost never buy cookies or cakes or snacks. I cannot think of maybe one time you have seen a Little Debbie snack cake in one of my grocery hauls in 3 years. Like, we just don't buy those things. If you want it, you have to make it. And you got to want it really bad to make it. And I don't keep them made because my goal with our grocery budget is for everyone to to consume things that are going to give them as much nutrition as possible, which means I don't want snacks laying around. I want them to, if they want something quick to grab, guess what? Carrots are easily available. So is celery. These things are easy options. Apples are here. You don't have to have the super sweet things. But anyway, I wanted something today. And I wanted something sweet. And I was talking to Tangi, my good friend over Freedom Homestead, if you don't know her. I was talking to Tangi when I was doing it, and I said, you know what I think I'm going to get? I got myself a teaspoon of honey. And that was it, you know? So it's just, you've got to decide for yourself that you're only going to go shopping on this day, and you're only going to spend this much, and be consistent with that. So that's part of the discipline and organization portion. It's also better for your health. So I would love to stay with you guys in Australia, Kylie. Do I recommend Costco? I am not a huge Costco fan. I've been there with friends because I don't have a membership there, and they're actually pretty far away from us, so it wouldn't be cost efficient for us to drive that far anyway. But I didn't see anything that I thought was significantly cheaper, and definitely not cheaper than my discount store. So let's see. I grocery shop on payday, and that's it. Whatever you don't buy goes on next week's list. Yes. Has eating vegan increased my spending? No, because we don't have any more funds. So we have to eat whatever diet we have on the funds that we have, period. There's no getting around that. So I'm vegan. This week, Ricky's vegan all week. He's always gluten-free. He's always nut-free. He can't have nuts. So, it doesn't matter what our diet is. That's our budget. And we just have to make the most of that. And It doesn't make any difference to us. So, let's see. Don't buy any sweets. Try to, that's a good idea, trying to prep fresh fruit at the beginning of the week. Definitely something that needs to be done. I try to spread it out. We're going to talk about that in a second. One thing I've noticed is to watch what you throw at girl. We're going to talk about that in a second too. All right, so the next one is kind of related to what we were just talking about. Don't go to the store or the farmer's market or wherever you purchase food. Sometimes people will just kind of get bored and they're like, oh, I kind of want this. Maybe I'll go to the store and just wander around. The next thing you know, even if you wanted just Twizzlers, you've got like 10 things in your cart. Don't just go to the store. This is not just a tip for grocery shopping, by the way. That is a tip for regular shopping. When Rick and I were very young, we used to be bored and not have anything to do, so we'd go walk around the mall with the kids and push them in the cart. And not cart, stroller. Anyway, so that was just something that we would do, and we would always end up buying something. Or there was always something we wanted. Even if we didn't buy it, it was always like, oh, I want to get that when we have some money. And we were kind of just filling our hearts with this idea of things that we wanted and spending. And I think the better thing that one day we decided we weren't going to do that anymore, and we were going to try to find entertainment that had nothing to do with buying things. And so, and yet, oh my word, don't even get me started on online shopping. Don't do it. Don't go on the sites. Don't go to the places. Just avoid it altogether, and you won't be picking it up. Shakima, girl, I see you. We talking about saving money on groceries, and I know you got some ideas too. So don't go to the store just randomly. No window shopping. The only place that we allow ourselves to just wander is the thrift store. And what we do is when we wander around the thrift store, and this is not particularly food related, but just a side note, we'll go with, a couple dollars and that's it. And like it's a game to see what we can get for like $2 at the thrift store. So anyway, and definitely don't, I'm seeing this Sephora thing, don't go in the makeup store, because you won't leave there without spending $50, period. That blows your whole grocery budget, or at least mine. So entertainment that doesn't cost anything. Well, that's a good idea. I'll see what I can do about that. Okay, so the next one was don't step away from the menu plan. Remember, this whole blog post was about organization and discipline. So you have to discipline yourself to not step away from the menu plan. Doesn't mean you can't switch up days, because sometimes it happens. You get busy, or maybe you have a lot of leftovers, and it just, you can switch the days up, but don't go completely off plan. Because it's going to throw the whole system. You'll accidentally use something that you were planning for another meal, and then you're scrambling to come up with something else. And what makes a menu plan work is its ease. Once you take away the ease of a menu plan, you ruin the whole system, because it makes it frustrating. It makes it a place of unhappiness. You're unhappy, so you don't want to follow it. And if you're unhappy, your family's unhappy. You don't want to go there. The easiest and best way to deal with the whole thing is just stick to the menu plan. And trust me, it will make your life easier. Okay, putting it on the board and then waking up in the morning, consulting the board, seeing what's on it, and going ahead and pulling those things out that maybe you need to thaw, maybe you need to cut up and prepare, getting it all ready first thing in the morning. And then that afternoon, when people are asking you, what are we having for dinner? You've already got it together. You have no stress. Life is happy. Okay, it's going to make you happy. Just do it that way. Stick to the menu plan. Even if you're hangry. If you're hangry, you should have something to nibble on. Maybe a carrot, maybe a cracker, whatever it is, some nuts, but something. Don't let yourself get to the hangry point. But anyway, so I'm just rolling back here to make sure I'm getting all your comments. Woo! Carolyn says she spends $500 on food a month. That's not bad. But she coupons for everything else. Awesome. Awesome. Budget $30 a month for hair and makeup. That is very disciplined of you, because I know how much you love both of those things. We have an awesome store that runs meat on mega sales, and that's why we stock up once a month, and that's what we have. Well, we stock up too. Stocking up is very important, but we have to stock up within budget if we're gonna get by. So the last tip on the Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I'm so glad your mom agrees with me at 84. That makes me feel like I have some good old time wisdom. So, the last tip that we have on the first part about discipline and organization is this, and I think this is really the kicker. Okay, when I do budget for stocking up, I'll tell you about that in a second. So, the kicker with discipline and organization is this note: practice thankfulness. Okay, because when you are not allowing yourself to go shopping, when you only give yourself a limited amount of money, when you give yourself a menu plan, it all starts to feel a little rigid if you're not used to it. And it can get frustrating and annoying. And like I said, the only thing that's going to make your menu plan successful is if you feel happy in it, if you're comfortable in it, if it's a place of joy and not a place of stress. Okay, the reason why people go to do menu plans is because that daily question of what's for dinner is a stressful thing, and that weekly question of how are we going to pay for this and how are we going to pay for our bills, that's a stressful thing. So you're trying to get to this point where you're making some changes and they're going to have some positive impact and positive results, and those positive results you're looking for are feeding everybody, doing it on a budget, and it being a good thing. But in order in that structure and that organization for you to feel comfortable with it, you really have to practice thankfulness. And so it starts with mom and dad. It always starts with mom and dad. You have got to be thankful for what's on your plate. Okay? Have you guys read Little House on the Prairie? Have you read the actual books? Some of my favorite portions of those books are the times when they practice thankfulness. I remember there was a time when there was a book called The Long Winter, and they all got snowed in with blizzards for a very long time, and they had a limited supply of food. And at some point, they ran out of butter, and so they were eating a baked potato, and all they could do was put salt on it. And Paul Ingalls said, man, I really like it was just salt on it. He said, really brings out the flavor of the potato. And he just always tried to make an effort to make the whole thing seem positive, no matter how difficult it was. In the last book, which is called The First 4 Years, it's when Laura gets married. The first day that she's married, her husband brings home some gentleman that he works with for lunch, and she's so excited to serve them this pie that she made. Well, she left out the sugar. And the gentlemen who were eating the pie took one bite and realized there was no sugar in the pie. And rather than complain about it or spit it out or make a big deal about it, he asked for the sugar, and he said, "Oh, I really like pie made this way. You can just add as much sugar as you want, and that way you don't get too much." And it was just very positive, and he just tried to make the best of it. And I think we have a society right now where people aren't practicing thankfulness. You know, maybe your family prays before a meal, and you thank the Lord for the food that you're given. But just because you thank the Lord outwardly doesn't mean that inwardly you're really thankful for what you're being given. And so that's important, especially this month. We're talking about Thanksgiving and thankfulness. But this whole idea about being thankfulness is important to saving you money, because you have to appreciate what you actually have, and you have to teach your children to appreciate what you're giving them. So I put it in the blog post, and I think this is important, that we've told our children on several occasions that they need to be thankful for what's given to them. And sometimes I've had to tell myself. Okay, so this is important, because you'll tell your children, no problem. You'll say, guys, I've worked really hard to make this, and you eat it the rest of the time, normally with no problem, but today you don't want it. I'm sorry. This is dinner. You're going to have to eat it, and just be thankful that you have food. Sometimes I've got to tell it to myself. Sometimes it's not what I particularly feel like eating that night. Sometimes it's just what's on the menu. It's what we have, and it's not something that I was dreaming about, but it's food and it's nutrition and it's filling bellies. And my husband worked very hard to earn the money to pay for it, and I worked really hard to make sure that the budget stretches, and I worked really hard to put it on the table. So all of these things, this whole idea of thankfulness, you've really got to practice it. And you've got to practice it in your own heart. You've got to practice it and encourage it in your children, and just do it in a really positive way, because again, your budgeting is not going to be successful unless it's a positive, happy thing. So I'm going to roll back and check your comments here. Woo, yep, here we go. Find out now that you can get good items at Dollar Tree using coupons. Awesome. I'm learning about practicing gratitude. It doesn't just happen, it's intentional. Exactly. I think that's why it's the idea of practicing thankfulness. We have to remind ourselves. It's not just going to come naturally. We have to purpose to do it. Definitely a place of peace. Let's see. Menu planning saves lives. Any tips on starting meal planning? That's what we're talking about. Starting meal planning. The first tips are organization and discipline before you even get started with that. Hold on. I give myself an out once a week with some better frozen foods. It's nice to feel like I don't have to cook if stuff comes up, and frozen is still much cheaper than restaurants. That's a great thing to do when you're planning your menu plan. I try to make sure on my plan that I always have at least 1 or 2 easy meals. And sometimes I need to switch those up. Sometimes I need something happens and I am busy and I just have to switch that thing on the menu. Pause for a second. I'm just trying to make sure that YouTube catches up. Okay, there we go. So anyway, I just have to make sure that the menu works. So if we get really busy one night and whatever I plan on the menu that night is going to take forever and we don't want to be up till like 10 o'clock at night, then I'm just going to pick whatever the quick meal was and get that on worked out, and that'll be it. And then the rest of the week I'm just going to have to make sure I have something prepared in advance if I know we're going to be busy. But it is good to make sure you have something easy on your menu so you can knock that out. But also, sometimes it doesn't work out that well and we get home late and I got to make something and we got to eat late. I mean, we've been known occasionally to eat at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So, but that's okay. It's better to eat a little bit later and have nutritious food in bellies, homemade good food, than to run out and get, fast food because it's quick and easy. And I think a lot of times the family appreciates it more if we put the effort into it. So, oh, that's so great. We need to realize that a hole can't be filled with stuff. That is so true. Because I think a lot of times with that whole idea of thankfulness is that we just want to fill ourselves so we can feel better and move on and just do something happy. We're kind of using it as a de-stress sort of thing, but we're not really filling our souls, even if we're filling our bodies. And there's more to food than just shoving food in our mouths. So just a little thought to ponder. I'm glad your kids are go with the flow. I'm glad my husband is go with the flow, because I do think some people have struggles with that. Melissa says, we sponsor a compassion child that's been a great tool to connect with my children on how blessed we are. Some mamas feed their babies dirt to fill their bellies. Dirt. Exactly. And we have friends that they're missionaries in Africa, and we've heard stories about people eating grass just to put food in their mouth. And it makes you appreciate all that you actually do have. So, thank you guys. When I make a menu plan, I try to include a couple things I've been craving recently. Then I get excited about the day the item comes up. That's a good point as well. We do want people to be thankful, and we're not going to try to always schedule things that people hate just because they're cheap. Okay, when I always make my menu plan, I have a little kind of rhythm that I go through. I always check my calendar first. We're going to talk about that more in a second, because I want to make sure those busy days don't catch me by surprise if I can avoid it. And then one of the next things I do is I will ask everyone in the family, is there something you want this week? And 9 times out of 10, they tell me, I don't care, I don't really have anything in mind. But then somebody always throws in something that they actually want to eat that week. And I will try my very best to put it on the menu plan. Now, if you watch our grocery hauls, it is rare that I can come up with a good deal on fish. So if someone out of the blue says to me, I want salmon, it might not happen that week. But I will try to get it, if not that week, in the next week or 2 or something, as soon as I can find a good deal on it. And my kids have learned to appreciate things more because they know it doesn't come as easy. I'm not definitely going to put it on the plate the next day. It's as soon as we can afford it. So when it actually does arrive, it's like, oh wow, we got salmon, and people really appreciate it. So so definitely, it's not like we want to just forget what everybody wants and just make it unhappiness. If there's something that we want, put it on the menu if you can, and if not, work toward it as soon as you can. Fast food is never as fast as we imagine. It is so not. How many times have you thought, oh, I'm so tired, I'm going to go get fast food? You go to the fast food line, and you sit in the fast food line for 30 minutes. And then the food comes out and it's wrong. And by the time you get it home, it's cold. And you just wish you'd never done it in the first place because you could have made some spaghetti at home a lot faster and it would have been a lot easier, much more healthy. So, okay. I like to stock a freezer prepped with meals. That way, when you get caught off guard, you can just throw it in something and eat. Also a great tip, I keep, for me, burritos in the freezer. Because for me, with the vegan meal, to me, that's the quickest thing. And we don't even have a microwave, but I'll throw it in the oven. 10-15 minutes, I've got me a nice burrito, and I can put a lot of different things on that based on what we have in the house. Tracy says, I have a gratitude journal that I have several things per day that I'm thankful for. I always tell my kids if I make something they don't like, they still need to eat it, but I won't make it again. We do try to work around things. For instance, Brian is my oldest son. He's 21, and he is not picky at all. He is the easiest child to cook for. He never complains. He loves vegetables, always has, and will eat anything that I make, except he hates spaghetti. He hates spaghetti. The rest of us like it, so I do make it. But because it's the only thing he doesn't like, and he's really not prone to complaint, whenever we make spaghetti, I'll plan to make a little something else for him. And it's fine. We work it out in our budget. It's part of the plan. So again, not necessarily forcing people to eat things they don't like. I'm not a fan of that. But we want to also not constantly sometimes people, I think, it's something that they will eat, but they just don't feel like it in the moment, and they want to whine about it. No. That's not going to happen here. You're going to eat that food and you're going to like it. And now my kids are old enough, I can say, you have a job, you have a bank account. If you don't like it, go buy something else. And they have done that from time to time. And you know what happened? I'll tell you this story too, because my kids are older. When the boys started with their regular jobs and started having money, they were like, yeah, I'm going to go out and just eat whatever I want, whenever I want. And then they realized how much it was adding up. How much they lost of their paycheck just going out to eat. And then all of a sudden they appreciated how much they were excited when mom was making food at home. So it was a good lesson to learn when they're at home. And now Brian, my oldest son, he normally plans out his week just like I do, like plans out his lunch meals, and if there's something on the menu that he's not a fan of, he'll actually go to the store and get himself something else because he doesn't want to spend the money on fast food. So it's been a really good tool to teach them as they're moving towards complete independence, how to be responsible with their own finances. So they just don't appreciate they live in my house and they get all of this for free. But they will. So anyway, let's see. I try to keep a menu plan for 6 weeks. That way I'm not always trying to come up with ideas. One thing that I recommend is making a menu like a restaurant. Okay, not a menu plan, a menu like a restaurant with a list of all the different meals that you make in your household. Okay, that's actually the first step of getting on a meal plan. Because one of the greatest challenges is when you're thinking about the week and trying to figure out what you're going to make. And you start thinking, what do I even make? Like you just get lost. And then you kind of end up making the same 10 things over and over again. So every week, or every time you think of something, you can have a little note thing on your phone to start it. Just make a little note of something you're like, oh yeah, I make that too, and make a little note. Or, oh yeah, I make that too. And eventually, if you sit down and think about it and then give yourself another week or two because you're going to think of something else as time goes by, start to build yourself a menu like a restaurant. And then once you have it all written out, when it comes time to menu plan, you can actually pull out that restaurant style menu and say, okay, this is something that maybe we want to have this week. We haven't had this in a while, and you can start rotating. But you have to actually have it written down because you're going to forget if you don't. You'll forget all about that. I do it all the time. I forget stuff, and Rick will be, we haven't had that in a while. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I even make that. So all of that stuff, just to be helpful. Hold on, I'm trying to roll back and catch these comments. Okay. My husband doesn't like cabbage, so I don't make it much even though it's cheap. Aldi's has They're fresh fish with $5 off stickers. Wow, I've never seen a $5 sticker on fish, but that would be good. Of course, what's my opinion on people that hunt and fish to fill their freezers? I think that is brilliant, and certainly something that would be helpful to people who want to have fresh meat and do it at a low cost, and also help control the population of wildlife. So all of that is excellent. Let's see. Yay, I am live. So glad you could join me. Food is a big control thing for my stepsons. I've learned it's not about the food, but they're upset about something else. That is so true. I have a question. I'm a young 17-year-old living on my own without a lot of money to spend on food. What's the best thing to buy for food that can make multiple meals at a cheap price? It depends on what you like to eat. And somebody else asked this about a college student, so I'll just throw this out there. One of the things that you need to do is learn to cook. And I'm not talking about following a recipe, and I'm not talking about microwave meals, and I'm not talking about box meals like Hamburger Helper. I mean actually start to learn to cook. Learn to make basic ingredients, rice, chicken, pastas, how to make sauces. Get yourself a cookbook. You can go to your library and do it, and start learning to cook food. And then once you learn to cook it, you can learn how to put things together to make meals. Definitely, if you're not on Pinterest, you should definitely get on Pinterest, and you should start looking for recipes that look interesting to you. And then when you go to the store and you get whatever you can find that's on a good sale, and then you're going to look on Pinterest to see what you can make with those ingredients. And then you're going to practice trying anything that you think is interesting that you can make with those ingredients. And you, if you're by yourself, if you're living completely on your own, no roommates, no anybody else, and it's just you cooking for yourself, the best bet for you will probably be to make, because they usually are, recipes are for large groups of people. You're going to want to get containers and freeze them and reheat them. So if you make a couple of things every week, Budget Girl is a really great channel. She does stuff like that for herself, and she's got some really great information on that. I highly recommend her channel to you. You're going to divide it up through the week to make sure that you have meals through the week. And again, you know, if you look on YouTube, there's a lot of great channels that do meal prepping. And it's a lot of these like real, you know, buff guys that are like young guys, and they're super healthy, and they actually plan their meals, and they're pretty much having the same meal 3 times a week. And then the other 3 days a week, they're having another meal, but they only cook 1 day a week, and then they divide it up into little containers. They've got all their food there. To me, that seems most cost effective if you're living by yourself and you're young. So that's a great option for you. Let's see. Hello. I'm trying to scroll back here. Definitely big batch cooking. Keep all my meal plans in the same notebook. That way I can flip back through and see what we haven't had for a while. That is helpful. I also keep a notebook, and I also flip back. And I use my notebook for meal planning and for my grocery lists and for my inventories, and I have it all in one notebook that I always carry with me, and I can always keep track of everything. I use the oven for multiple dishes. This is a great time of year, again, on the idea of saving money. If you're using the oven, make multiple things at once, and you'll only use your electricity, plus you'll help heat up the house. So a rice cooker is a great tool for high school and college. It is not complicated, good for one-pot meals, and there's a lot of tips and tricks that go with that on YouTube and on Pinterest. Found one lunch and one breakfast that I love to eat every day. Makes cooking for dinners every night much easier. Yeah, definitely the less you overwhelm yourself, the better. Don't get overwhelmed. Just take it one step at a time. Again, the idea of practicing thankfulness, and hopefully it'll help you to get some ideas that'll, you know, get some joy in the process, and then you can get ideas and it'll all work together and help you save money on your budget. Do you guys have time? Do you want to go on to part 2? Or do you want to save that for next week? We've already been here 40 minutes. I'm going to scroll over here and see what we've got. Part 2, I talk about making, well, we kind of already talked about it. We talk about making the restaurant menu that I just talked about. And if you, part 2. If you actually go to thefundamentalhome.com, you can look up all the rest of the parts if you're inclined to. And if you'll go to the right-hand side, if you're on a computer, you can go to the right-hand side and it'll show top posts and pages. and it'll say how I feed my family of 5 for $100 every month, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. We'll only do part 2 and that's it. That's it for this time, then we'll come back and do it another time. But part 2 is talking about that menu that you build. Okay. 2, yes, it is on the blog at thefundamentalhome.com. So part 2, we're talking about building the menu, the actual menu that's like a restaurant where you have all the different things that you make, and I put a couple notes on there because the way that I have it, I have breakfast and I have a list of breakfast items, and I have lunch and I have a list of lunch items, and then I have dinner and I break dinner down into meats, veggies, salads, and whole meals that I make. And the reason why I have breakfast and lunch different is because at our house, breakfast and lunch aren't regularly planned. I do not have small children, and I do not get up and make breakfast every morning. So thank you very much. My children are older and they can make their own breakfast. So I have a system where I just have a lot of, I'll tell you what's on here. It says eggs, muffins, yogurt, granola, quick breads, oatmeal, toast, and fruit. Those are pretty much standard what we keep in our house all the time, and the kids can have anything they want. Now, I do try to have a quick bread, a muffin, or a bar of some kind, a healthy one, every day available. So, which means that I'm going to cook once or twice a week to make sure that there's some kind of bar available. I just put up a recipe this week for my oatmeal bar, blueberry oatmeal bars. So you can look at that as an example. I have a different berry oatmeal bar, which is kind of, it's more sweet. That one's more kid friendly. So we try to have those things available, and those breakfast bars are really quick, and they can take those with them if they want. So it's continental style. I have all these things available. They can make whatever they want. Ricky, I have this noted on here that Ricky likes to fry things with sticky rice. He loves Asian food. So I almost always have rice, cold rice in my fridge, and anybody can fry that up if they want to. Of course, there's also biscuits. I don't make biscuits that much anymore. When the kids were younger, I used to make it a lot. But all those things are things you could have available for breakfast that are simple and nutritious depending on how you're making it, how you're using it. And again, the second point is breakfast is simple. I do not buy cereal. I do not recommend that anyone buy cereal. If you guys have eaten any cereal at any time, then you know that you will eat cereal, and I don't care how healthy it is, a couple of hours later, you're going to be starving. Frankly, you'd be better off eating nothing, because if you ate nothing and went through till lunch, you'd probably be fine. But if you eat cereal just a few hours later, you're going to be starving. And again, my number one goal is nutrition. So why would I give them something that is not going to support their nutritional needs? You know what I mean? So my main thing that we like to have in our house is oatmeal in some form. Okay, it gives them a good amount of protein. We're usually putting fruit with it. So they're going to get a lot of their vitamins and minerals from oats in the morning. That's usually the main thing that we're going to try to have in some form. But it doesn't always work out that way. But cereal is also very expensive. Even if you're getting it at the discount grocery store, when you break it down into individual meals, it's not worthwhile, especially when you're adding milk. So the only time we ever get cereal, and if you've followed us for a while, you know this, is on Christmas. Christmas Day, everyone gets a present of cereal. And I usually try to make it like something that's like they wanted to try or they're interested in, or something that seems really weird. I don't know. We always just try to get random cereals. Christmas morning, everybody can enjoy a bowl of cereal. Do you know why? Because we're having a wonderful big meal the rest of the day, several meals. And so I'm like, if you want to have a little cereal for a treat, fine. So we do it as a treat on Christmas Day, and that is it. And the process thing, I don't even go there. So you'll notice that's not on my menu plan. I'm so glad you guys know that. I also make sure lunch is not complicated. And again, the whole goal is to make this menu plan easy. Easy for me, easy for the kids, because if it's a lot of pressure and work on me, it's probably not going to happen. So we want to make sure it's easy. And to do that, the breakfast is easy and lunch is easy. Again, my kids are older. It's usually leftover sandwiches or soup. That's it. I mean, soup and salad is almost always thrown in on a lunch in some form, either a regular salad or coleslaw or potato salad or something. We're usually having that with lunchtime. It's not complicated. It is not complicated, but we try to make sure they're there. We do occasionally purchase chips. Well, more than occasionally. We fairly regularly purchase chips. We get a bag or two for 6 grown-sized people. And that's it. We have pretzels, we have popcorn, we have crackers from time to time. But the bulk of what we have for lunches is leftover. So last night on our menu plan was tacos. And so today we had some leftover tacos. But we really didn't have that much meat for the meat-eating members of the family. We had just a little bit. So, of course, we added some leftover, we had some leftover beans and rice. And I didn't have anything else. And I was like, what am I going to fill it with? So I fried up some mushrooms and onions. And we just try to stretch it as far as we can. But the goal is, again, to use up those leftovers and making sure that we're making the most use of them. And it's easiest to do it on our lunches because you don't want to have the same thing for dinner every week. Here's another thing to add. I get asked about this a lot. 2 more notes. Number 1, we drink water. I get asked a lot about spending money on food, on drinks. There are no beverages on my menu because we drink water. There's always tea available in my house, mostly because guests have it. My husband drinks coffee, so we do always have coffee. But other than that, we have water. That's what everybody gets. Again, there's no sodas coming in this house. And if somebody brings a soda in my house, they're going to hear about it. Like if they go, like those times they go out and buy themselves something and they bring it in the house, Mom has a word to say about it because I'm not a soda fan. But the goal is nutrition, and sodas deplete nutrition. And so why are they putting something in their mouth that's going to take away all that work that I'm putting into them? Not a good idea. So also it's expensive. It's just expensive. Off the list. Why do I want to spend money on something that's not good? No sodas, water. That's what they get. Yeah, there is kombucha. You can make that yourself. I've made it. I have a recipe here on the channel. If you haven't seen that, I've made kombucha. It just depends on what your family prefers and what your needs are. We will occasionally make a fruity drink from the fruit that we have here. But again, it's rare because your body really needs water. It needs a lot. People aren't getting enough of it. So water, it's good. So the next thing and the final thing is not buying snacks. We kind of talked about that already. We don't buy them. Don't buy snacks. And I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I can't tell my kids no snacks. Don't tell your kids no snacks. Make snacks with them and tell them when the snacks are gone, they're gone, and stick to it. And then everybody gets snacks and they learn to stretch it out and they learn to make do, but they're getting a healthier version of it because there's not as many preservatives and many unhealthy things in it. They're getting homemade from scratch. They get the experience of making it with Mom and Dad much better than if you were to actually just grab something from the store and people shove it in their mouth and, again, not be good for their health. So that is it for part 2. So if you guys like this, we can come back next week. One day next week. I won't do it on Thursday because hopefully we'll have a grocery haul next week. So next week we can come back and do part 3. Maybe even work our way into part 4. I don't know. But we can finish the whole series and just go over some of these tips that I recommend and get a little extra information about it. Again, you can go to thefundamentalhome.com and look at the blog posts and see the actual tips, and if you want to check it out this week and see if there's anything that'll help you. But, you know, I hope this has given you some ideas of things to stretch your budget this week and save money in your groceries. I've actually gotten a SCOBY before, but I'm chicken to actually make kombucha. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I bake up potatoes in the Instant Pot every week. Baked potatoes are great to have in the house. They really are. We do that all the time. Yep, and you can drink. Some of us here in the U.S. can also drink water straight from the tap. It just depends on where you're at and if you trust your water. Homemade fruit leather is a great option. Kale chips, those are things that are great to have on hand. Again, those berry bars that I make also work really well for a snack. Coffee's my only drink. Well, that's not the least expensive drink in the world, so you just gotta watch that if you're on a budget. We have tips to get coffee on a budget too, because I need to make a video on that with Rick. We need to do that. Anyway, that is it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Again, I hope it was helpful to you. Hope it encouraged you to save money on your groceries. I will try to come back next week and give you the rest of at least another set of tips. And if you guys have any other questions, you can let me know either here or at the Fundamental Home on Facebook. And that's it. So you all have a wonderful week. Save money on your groceries, and I will see you next time. Bye.